Okay. All right. So the book that we're going to be using is the Garrison Noreen Bureau, the Management Accounting 18th edition. That is a new edition for this semester. So all of the assignments will have to be adjusted from my previous class. But everything that you do is going to be on Connect as far as the assignments go for your homework and for exams. So you have to have the Connect. It should have been included when you registered for the class. You shouldn't have to pay for anything separate. The Proctor & software is supposed to be included so that when you take the test, and it goes into, when you open that up, it shouldn't ask you for a payment when you open up the exam, because it's using Proctor & software. So if anything comes up saying that you have to you have to pay a fee, please let me know so I can try to see if I can get it fixed some kind of way. But it was all supposed to be included. So again, the meetings are on Thursday, 6 o'clock. And then we have till 8:45 that we can be online. I don't know that we'll ever be online that long. We try to do one chapter a week. And so typically we get through that chapter and questions, and usually like an hour, hour and a half sometimes, depending on the chapter. Some seem to be a little bit easier than others. Some people think this class is better than the principal's class. So it may be easier for you. It's a little bit different than it was, but I'm going to go over some basics from the first principal's class because I'm not sure how long it's been since you've had that class. So I just want to go over some of the basics so that you have an understanding of where the information's coming through and how it's posting to the financial statements. And so that way, when we talk about these different methods, it makes a little sense. It's kind of a review to help you when you're doing this class. Okay, so you should have finished that first principles class, Accounting 2100, in order to be able to be registered into this class. So the learning objections, it provides relevant and timely information for decision making and aids control by managers within the organization. So each chapter that we go through, it's a lot of manufacturing cost accounting, and how do they calculate, what methodologies do they use in order to calculate cost in a manufacturing type accounting software. We're going to be learning that. So you are all currently registered to get a degree outside of accounting. And so I'm going to try to bring in ways that the accounting department could be mingling with the different departments, marketing, business, how managers could be used, project managers. Some of these, some positions for project manager could be doing job costing, and maybe not at a manufacturing plant, possibly just for a company that does installs. And so I'll try to bring it into what possibly you could be doing in your job, in your role when you're finished with school. So that would become somewhat relevant. There's going to be some things that maybe you'll be presented with that you'll never use, but maybe you'll have a takeaway from it with reporting or something like that. So my goal is to have something that will stick, that's going to benefit you in the future in your career. All right, so for our grading, we have 4 exams. They're all going to be worth 100 points. We also have homework and quizzes. So the homeworks, they will be issued every week. You'll have a homework assignment, and all of those homeworks together will equal 100 points. So that when your homeworks are done as collectively as a whole, it will count as one test. So if you do all of your homeworks and get all of your points, you'll have one test that's 100. And the way that I have the homework set up, you should be able to submit as many times as you need to in order to get the 100, as many points as possible. I have practice up there so that you can submit that one and look and see and get the notes and Connect. They're really good about giving you steps on how to solve problems. So if you're stuck on something, you have those practice problems you can do in the practice homework. That's just there as a resource. It's not graded, but it helps get you information in order to be able to complete your homework assignment so that you can get the most points possible. All right, so the grading scale is basically a 10-point grading scale. So just right here is our grading points, and that's how it's going to be for the final when we go to put the grades onto WebStar. This is the point scale that I'll be using. All right, so the exams will be done through Connect. I don't know if you've taken exams through Connect, but there's a proctoring software that allows me to set up the camera to kind of video the space that you're in. It requires you to have the camera. It requires you to have that computer and a good internet connection. Sometimes if you don't have a good, strong internet connection, the testing can have issues where sometimes people get kicked out halfway through. Sometimes we have some problems that have to, be worked out. And I understand that we don't always have the best connection. Sometimes things happen. So because we're using online and we're using that internet in order to do testing, if something happens and you're having issues, I want you to text me right away. Let me know what's going on. I'll try to help fix it. Sometimes people get stuck and I can go in there and stop the test, restart it. So I need to know. If you don't let me know, I can't fix it. If I can help you if you don't let me know that hey, I'm trying to take this test. This is what's going on. So all of that's going to be done through the Connect proctoring software. Most of the time, things go real smooth. We only have a few hiccups here and there. So for the makeups, I would like you to, if you know that you're not going to be able to make a test, I would like you to contact me in advance. Let me know what's going on. I work full time. I do this part time, and I went to school while I was working full time. I had kids. I was married, so I understand that sometimes things come up. Work maybe is sending you someplace you're going to be out of town. Maybe something happened in the family. Things happen. So if you see the dates that the test is going to be open, and for whatever reason you can't take that test, just contact me in advance so we can work something out and come up with something that will work for you. So try to be flexible. It's online. You're trying to fit this in. I'm sure most of you have other things going on. So just work with me and I'll work with you. All right. So the homeworks, I do put them up. I put the dates that I expect them to be finished and completed and submitted. I do note on here that I won't take late homeworks, but I find that sometimes things happen and we can't get to them. So I opened it up for y'all to be able to submit the homeworks late. And that way you can still get credit for it. And like I said, you can do the homework multiple times and get the most points possible. I'll go through at the end of the semester and I'll pull all those homework grades out again and make sure that I have the highest score on the homeworks, and that's what's going to get calculated into the grade. So those will feed in. I think that the way that this is set up, and we're going to go through Canvas, I believe the grades are going to feed into Canvas, which is something new. I haven't done that before with Moodle. I used to just have all my testing in Connect and have my grades in Connect and pull the reports out. But things are going to flow through to Canvas. And as far as I know, I still think our final grades are going on WebStar. I think I still have a little bit of control over being able to adjust grades in order to get it into WebStar with what I want. But we'll see how that goes. And if I have to make an adjustment on Canvas, if it feeds in some kind of way, I'll figure that out later. But just know that I will take the highest score on the homework. So quizzes, sometimes there's a quiz. I don't use quizzes very often, but I will do an extra credit. So if we take an exam and I find that a lot of students miss the same type of question, and the information I feel maybe wasn't being grasped like I want it to be, I'll do an extra credit and I'll put something that is within, what that question was asking. I'll put something up there in that range. So that way, if you can't pass it on the test and I didn't get it clear to you through the lectures, through the extra credit, as long as we're doing that and trying to understand the concepts, then I'm okay with that. And I'll use those extra credit points to help with a score on an exam. So there won't really be a quiz per se, but it'll be more like an extra credit and maybe a topic that wasn't was it answered the way that I'd like it to be answered on the exams. So we'll have that periodically. Okay, missed classes, we don't really have that because we're not missing. If you missed the Zoom class, it's okay, because the classes are going to be recorded and I will put them onto my YouTube channel. So I've been having the YouTube channel for a little while. So there's previous semesters that are still on there for this class. And if you want to go back and listen to any of those old ones, like if you're working ahead and I haven't done the lecture yet, you want to go ahead and get the information for your homework because you're doing it in advance, you can go ahead and watch those other YouTubes. You don't have to be on the Zoom call on the Thursday night that we meet. So my attendance that I'm taking for the class is going to come through. I used to be able on Moodle look to see when the student was active, and I'm sure I probably will be able to get something off of Canvas. I definitely can tell on Connect, and that's still the same. So I'll be able to keep track of when you're doing work and when you've come online to look at your assignments or to do your assignments. I'll have that information that way. So for our classes, you don't necessarily have to be on Zoom. Just know that you can listen to the recording if there's something that happens and you can't get here on Thursday at 6. All right. I communicate through email, and I like the little announcement tab. I used that today to put the link for the Zoom call. I also sent it in an email because I'm not sure if everybody's comfortable yet and where you're checking for the information. So I put it in both places, but I do like the announcements. So I'm probably going to use that in order to send some information out, but I probably will back it up with an email as well, because I'm not sure what you're receiving on your end. I don't know if you get an email for the announcements and an email when I send an email through Canvas. I guess it's going to be a learning curve for me, and I'll just do it. Just let me know if you're getting too much from me, just let me know. But that's how I plan to do it, is through the announcement and through the email, through the inbox on Canvas. Calculators, you don't need anything fancy. Just a regular calculator is fine. We're just going to be doing basic math. It's not real complicated formulas or anything like that. We'll have some formulas, but they're not like really, really complicated. So all you need is a basic calculator. If you have disability and you need to send me the form, go ahead and email that to me. That way I can get it filled out for you, and I'll make sure if it's extra time on the test, I'll make sure that I have you set up that way. If it's any other accommodation, we can work with that. So just make sure you get an email to me for that. I expect that you are going to try to take this class just like if we were in class together. So when you go to take your test, make sure you study, you prepare, and take the test just like if you were sitting in class and had no resources available. You probably won't be able to get into anything on the internet when you're taking the test because the software blocks you out. So so make sure you study like if you're sitting in the classroom, and keep track of the dates on the calendar so that you know if you're struggling and you need to drop the class, those dates, keep watch of those. But before you drop the class, you've registered for this class, you're paying for it, you are spending the time, you're spending weeks maybe before the drop date that you've invested. And so I'd like to try to get you past this class on the first go round. I don't want to see people have to retake. So let's try to do everything we can to get you to pass. Just reach out to me if you're really struggling with something, and let's see, because I can usually tell if someone's got enough points to where, I know when we have extra credit and stuff like that, that I can work through it with you and let you know what a possible grade would be. So anyway, so what you should take away from this is just make sure you communicate with me, and then talk to me before you make decisions, and I can help you decide. All right, so this is our schedule. You should see the schedule that is for the fall. Thursdays at 6, and it has the week begin date. I realize that's not a Thursday. I'm just starting with Monday, so this is the week. And this is what we're doing today. We're going over the syllabus. We're registering Connect. We're going to look a little bit at financial accounting. We're not going to do a whole lot tonight. But anyway, so this is going to be your schedule that you can keep track of to see where we are on the weeks where we're at and when the exams are going to be coming up. So that week that we have the exam, we won't meet that week. We'll just have the exam posted. So because this class is on a Thursday, more than likely what I'm going to do is open the test on a Thursday, and it's going to stay open through Sunday. So that way, if you are working and you're off on the weekends, it might be better for you to take the test on the weekend. Maybe you have work on the weekend and you're off on Friday and you want to take it on Friday. So depending on when your schedule is, you'll have several days to fit the test in. Once you start the test, you won't be able to stop. So keep that in mind. So make sure you have enough time in order to take the test. The test will be set up for an hour and a half. That's usually about how long, the class is for a test. So when we have the test, I don't normally do a lecture after when I'm in class. So I'm not planning to do that here either. You just take the exam that week. We just won't meet. We won't have anything new that week either. So we are in the fall, possibly may have some bad weather or something happens. Sometimes that happens. Unfortunately, I'm hoping we have a season with no hurricanes again. But if something happens, we'll adjust and move things around and figure out the schedule for the rest of the semester. And I'll put up something that's revised. Okay, so I'm going to switch over to Canvas. I'm going to bring my screen over. Mine may look a little bit different than yours, but when you log on to your class, I can do student view. So this is what you should see. You should see your welcome. So there's the schedule, there's the syllabus. So like I said, if anything changes, I will go ahead and put a revised schedule here. If you need notes or PowerPoints that you want to go back and refer to, I'll have those, posted on Canvas so that way you can get to them. This is just resources. This is for you to have in order to help you with what you're learning in the textbook. This first 2 weeks in the first exam is financial accounting stuff. So this is management accounting. So the book that's linked to the class is the management accounting book. So all you'll have for resources is this information here on Canvas, the notes and the PowerPoint and the lecture, as well as the homeworks. So everything that's on the test is going to come from the information that's here. So where I have homework assignment, this right here, when you click it, it's going to link you over to, it should launch something to click on to get to Connect. I can't do it from student view. Hang on, let me go back to mine. All right, so I have launch assignment. I'm not sure if this is the same exact thing that happens for y'all. There should be something that forces you to register some kind of way through that link. I think that first assignment that you click on, it should bring you to something in Connect in order to sign up for the class. So this is just my view. Let me see if I can get to, I don't know if I can get to myself from here. It's okay. I'll bring it up on my other screen. Okay, let me go back to modules. So the welcome was there and your financial accounting review is there. So this is what I have opened up so far in order for you to see and click on. So any of these you can download. This is your homeworks that link in. This is what's required. You have to do these homeworks and get those points. Then you'll have the exam open up that week that we're going to take the exam. You'll have that open up. The next test is on chapters 1 through 4. So the way that I organize it is financial review is going to all be together. You can collapse it when you're done. You're finished with that section. So the next section is chapters 1 through 4. In there, I'm going to keep all the documents for that exam, chapters 1 through 4. So the first section is going to have your notes and your PowerPoints. Again, this is just information that you can go to and read through the notes. You can look at the PowerPoints and get some information. So all of those notes and PowerPoints are coming from the Connect software. So everything should match up with what the book is showing you when you do your readings. All of those notes should be in line with that. They should be in line with the PowerPoint, giving you a little bit more information than the PowerPoint's giving you. So you'll have those resources. Then you'll have the homework assignments required. This is where you have your assignment that you're going to have to do. So you'll click on this, go to your link. This is the homework you complete. Let's say you get stuck on something and you want to look at the practice homework and try to work through it through the practice homework first, and then go back and put it onto your regular homework that gets submitted. This is your link for your practice homework. So this is set up. It's the exact same homework. It's going to have no points on it. It's just a resource for you. If you need it, you don't have to use it. It's only if you need it. Then I have chapter reading and videos. So this Connect software in the book, they do videos that I like how they do. So sometimes there's some things that we're going to be doing that I find those little videos can be helpful with the homework. So I'll put them there. So you can use them or not use them. The chapter reading. Okay, hang on. Let's see if I can make sure everybody's muted. All right, so the chapter reading and videos, that is going to link you into the chapter book to read. The smart reading also gives you a way to assess how much you're catching on. You can do questions. There's a lot in there. So you can spend a lot of time on it, reading, doing questions, checking to see how much information you know, what you don't know. Again, that is all just optional. You're not going to get any points for that. This is helpful to maybe read through the chapter before we do the lecture, so you can understand a little better what we're doing in the lecture. But it's not mandatory, and it's 0 points. It's just there for a resource. And then here's the exam. So just keep in mind that each little section that we have an exam on is going to be grouped together. So we'll have financial accounting, we'll have the chapters 1 through 4, chapters 5 and 6, and then chapters 7, 8, and 10. These are the 4 exams. This is the information on the exams. That last week of school, we don't have a final cumulative exam. We only have the 4 exams. So we'll be done, and you won't have to take another test for this class, which should help. It'll be one less test you have to take during the final exam week. On the last test that covers chapters 7, 8, and 10, there will be 10 questions that come from exam 2, 3, and 4 that are departmental. And I'll make sure that you know what information you need to know from the other chapters. That's going to be on there. I'll have that posted on Canvas. So before the exams, you'll have a study guide for chapters 1 through 4. You'll have a study guide for chapters 5 and 6. You'll have a study guide. Chapters 7, 8, and 10, you'll have a study guide. And my suggestion to you is to make sure you know all the information on the study guide. That's what I'd like you to focus on when you're studying. That's where the information is going to come from for your exam. So if there's things you've done in homework and problems you've done in homework and you don't see it on the study guide, it's not going to pop up on the test. I'm not going to have tons of information that you've done and you're not knowing what's going to be on the exam. I find that some students with all this math and different calculations, sometimes it's confusing. I feel like having all of that, is hard to try to focus in on what you really need to know and what I feel is important. So I like to narrow down and tell you what you should study. And that way, the information that's coming on the exam. That's the information I feel it's important that I want you to know. So can't stress it enough. Make sure you study your study guide. For the financial review, make sure you just study those little note sheets and the homeworks, because the testing is coming from those homeworks. So you shouldn't see anything new. The other thing that I like to do is, once we get to chapters 1 through 4, some of the test questions are problems that you have to work out. And I find that it can be a little bit challenging to know, how am I going to fill this question out? It's sometimes different from the way you've done the homework. Sometimes you get confused just knowing what the computer's asking you to do and how do you do it. So some of the questions are where they're set up where you can have different numbers every time that question pops up. It'll be the same question, different numbers. So when I have a test question like that, that's a problem that you have to work through, I will put up a practice question for the exams. Right before the exam, I'll post 2 or 3 questions, and you can go to those and you can take them. They're just practice, they're not for points, but you can walk through the problem and see what is it going to be asking me, how is it want the information in the system. And you should have unlimited times to be able to do that before you actually take the test. So 2 or 3 problems that are going to be on the exam, you'll have practice of those before you actually take the exam. So I try to give you as much as possible to try to help you with this class. You should not fail this class. There's a lot of resources available, and I'm available to help you as well. All right, so next I want to go to the Connect website just to look at that real quick. I gotta sign in. Hang on one second. Okay, it should be loading up. Try again. I don't know why it's not loading. Let me log out of that. Let me see, make sure I don't have anything. I'm gonna close this.
So lines, we're drinking log line.
But all right, I'm attempting to try to log back into McGraw-Hill. Okay, here we go. When you get in there, I don't know if you're going to see it this way, but they'll be set up exactly the same way that Canvas is set up. This financial accounting, this is where the 2 homeworks are. I have these linked into Connect, so that's why you see them on Connect. Chapter 1, it's going to be the same thing. So I don't know if you'll have access to the entire course, but if you go to Student View, what you should see right now is just that financial review that should be open for you. And you can see it's a folder, which tells you, okay, here's my main folder. It's got the heading on it. If you click down, it's going to show you the homework that's on there. So because I have those other assignments where you can do reading, you can do practice, you have your homework assignments. When you do chapters 1 through 4, you're going to see all of those assignments listed in that section. So you'll have chapters 1 through 4 and it'll list them all out. Let me see if I can show you what it's going to look like. It should look just like it looks on Canvas. So let me open these up. So I have to go back through. Remember I told you that we had a new edition. I got to go back through because I lost some of my questions. And I got to go through it and see what I lost. Okay, so here's chapter 1. In chapter 1, you'll see here's my reading, here's a narrated PowerPoint, my chapter 1 homework for practice, and then my chapter 1 homework that I'm going to submit. So these dates will be updated. This will be just open for the whole time of the semester. You really only need it, for the first test. And then the homework I'll give you the date range, and it'll be the due date will be the date that I expect you to have it turned in. So it's just going to be a little bit different than the financial accounting because you'll have these other resources coming from the book. You'll have the narrated PowerPoints where basically they're just reading you the PowerPoint. So if you are at work or driving and you want to listen to this, you can set it up and you can listen to the narrated PowerPoint. The reading is a smart book. This is where you click on to get into that assignment to start reading and get the questions and kind of do an assessment of where you are, which you understand. So it's really up to you how much time you need to put into the class in order to be able to get the homework completed and to understand the information. So I want to stop there for a second and see if anybody has any questions before we move forward. See, no questions? Let me open my chat back up. It's not opening. Nope. So if you put something in the chat, I can't see it right now. Here it is, show. I'm hitting show and I don't see it, so I don't know where it's going. Are y'all still with me?
Yes, we're still with you.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Nobody asked anything, so I just want to make sure y'all still with me. I didn't put y'all to sleep or I somehow lost y'all. Show chat preview. So I'm saying, oh, here it is. I found my chat. Nope, that's not it. I can't find the chat window.
Maybe take off of screen share. It should probably pop up.
All right, let me see. Okay, yeah. Yep, no new comments. So nobody has any questions. I must have did a good job of explaining how we're gonna do our homeworks and stuff. All right, let me go back to share screen. All right. So anyway, so since we went over everything that is the course overview and the syllabus and how to get to the assignments, what my expectations are, we're just going to talk a few minutes about the financial accounting. How long has it been since y'all had it? Do y'all have people that just had it, or do I have some that haven't had it for a while? Oh, I got my chat window back. You can put it in there if you wanted to. Okay, somebody just did it over the summer. That's brave. 2 semesters ago, so that's a little bit of time in between. It's been a while. So the ones that haven't had it in a while, this will just be a good little refresher. The ones that just had it should be pretty easy for this first exam. And we're only going to cover the first 3 chapters. So I feel like it kind of gives you an overview on those 3 chapters. So anyway, so I know that y'all non-accounting students, y'all are going to have degrees probably in business, finance, HRT. I think I have a mix in here. So learning accounting isn't always, especially a marketing degree, accounting's not their favorite. And so we'll try to make this as painless as possible. Chapter 1 just kind of went over the basics and explaining, accounting, and went over some concepts, gave you some, the basic formula for accounting and how do we, pull all of these transactions that are happening within an organization. How do we pull it all together so that we have relevant information, something that's reliable. It can be compared to something else. It's something that can be used by our internal and external users. So accounting is a really important department within the organization, and it's going to feed information to other departments, to managers, to marketing people. You got to rely on that data coming to you from reports, and you want it to be accurate. You also want it to be relevant, because you don't want to report and it makes no sense because it doesn't have anything to do with what you're doing. So you don't want those kind of reports either. So hopefully you have a good accounting department with where you work. Anyway, so sometimes you may get a finance degree and you may find yourself working in accounting. I have a couple of people in my accounting department that have finance degrees. I have a couple that have accounting degrees. I have some that don't have any degrees. So there's a mix of it. I guess I'll tell you something a little bit personal about myself. I'll give you some information. So I briefly mentioned that I had gone back to school while I was married and had 2 kids. I started working in accounting, and I must have been about 19. I was working and going to school part-time. I was working full-time, going to school part-time. And I started with accounting because I was working at a car dealership, working in the service department with the bills and then doing some receivables. And I really liked it. So I made a decision I was going to go to accounting. And I went to school for like 7 years. I made it to my sophomore year. And it was just a really slow thing. And, having friends and just, wanting to get married and all this, I said, well, I'm going to take a break. My break turned into 15 years. So I went to have my second baby and I was on bed rest for 6 months and I was thinking about it. I'm like, I'm working, I want to make more money. So I'm going to go back to school and finish. I'm doing accounting anyway. And so I did. I went back. I was at UNO in the 90s and then I went back in 2013. And I finished my undergrad in accounting, got my accounting degree. And then I went and did my master's in 2016 and I graduated with my master's in tax accounting. And then in 17, I did the CPA exam. So, if you're busy and school's tough, I get it. I've been there, but it pays off in the end. And, they can't take your experience away, then they'll be able to take your knowledge away. And so everything that you do now, I feel helps in some way in the future for what you're going to be doing. So I'm hoping that I can impact all of y'all in a positive way. I hope that you get something out of the class. So anyways, that's a little bit about me. So once I finished my degree in the CPA, I had run into the department chair was Dr. Harmlake at Walmart. And I was asking to do tutoring or something like that. I was part of Beta Alpha Psi. So I was like, maybe I can help with that. But he didn't really have anything tutoring. And I said, well, I was hoping to do tutoring because I'd like to teach. And then that just opened the door for me to be able to start teaching at UNO. So I have 2 degrees from UNO and now I'm teaching at UNO. So I'm glad that y'all are here, and I think that we have a great business department, and obviously I feel like this accounting department is one of the best in the city. So I wouldn't be here otherwise. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. So hopefully that, kind of helps you or encourages you with where you are. All right, so let's talk about some accounting. So we're looking at all the transactions that happen within a business. So we need to identify the activities that require transactions. There's events that happen all the time, right? So we have people out, like let's say they're selling something. You have people that are in sales, they're meeting people. They may put a quote out there, then this quote turns into a sales invoice. Maybe we're selling products. That turns into go into a department to have to do purchasing, and we're having to follow this, track the information, track product. Maybe we have a labor department that has to go out and install. So we have all these little transactions. So we have to know how to record those transactions. And how does it make sense? How do we log all of these events and transactions that are happening like throughout each process in the organization? How do we communicate those activities to internal and external users? How do we produce that financial statement? So that's everything that that pertains to accounting and how we get that done. So it identifies, records, and communicates information on transactions and events, and it includes crucial process and analysis interpretation. So we have different users. I've referred to the internal and external users. I'm sure that is, makes perfect sense. External is people that are outside the organization. Internal are people that are inside the organization. So both are very important. Maybe you have a company that you're looking for investors. Well, they want to see your financial documents in order to see, is this a business that I want to invest in? So that would be an external user. Or maybe I'm a project manager at a plant and I'm looking at my numbers. I need to know, am I over on my cost? Am I estimating my overhead accurately? Or do I need to make adjustments? Those are internal users of the reports. All right, so we have many different opportunities in accounting. There's financial, managerial, taxation, accounting related. And then The majority of the opportunities are in private accounting as employees working for businesses. So I am an employee of the File organization. The File organization is a real estate development organization. I work for a family that lives in New York, and their last name's File. They're a Jewish family. So I work in the accounting department for all the property that he owns down here. And and my role is assistant controller. So I have a team of 10 people that we are keeping track of all of the properties that he has in the area, and we're processing all of our transactions through the accounting department, and we're feeding information to our regional managers. They're looking at, how much are they spending on these buildings, who are our new tenants going to be. And so we're feeding them information on, from the tenants. So we're looking at a lot of different information. Every day we're doing lots of transactions, and we are providing reporting of all the transactions that happen to multiple people internally and externally. So there's a lot of different opportunities in accounting. They tell you about different certifications. Now, y'all are not going to be accountants, but I have known some people that were in my principals class that weren't going for accounting, and they took principals. They were really good at it. I talked conversation with them, and they've switched their degree to accounting. So you never know where you're going to be. All right, and then we have ethics. So a lot of times you'll hear a lot of different stories, and there's bad things that happen people that are accounting because they have a lot of control in the financial reporting. So sometimes people make really bad decisions and lose sight of what they're supposed to be doing. So the goal of accounting is to provide useful information for decisions to be useful. It must be trusted. And ethics are beliefs that distinguish right from wrong. We should all know that. They're accepted as a standard of good and bad behavior. So sometimes we make bad decisions, and those decisions come with consequences. So there's been a lot of people that are in the accounting department or in financial positions that sometimes will embezzle money, or, I know everybody knows probably about Enron. I'm not sure. It depends on how young some of my group is, but Enron happened and caused a lot of problems with the way they were reporting their values, and made it look like they were doing better than they were, and lost a lot of people's money. It was just a really bad thing. So once that happened, there's a lot of rules that went into place after that. So we have GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. So we want our information to be relevant, we want it to be reliable, and we want it to be comparable. All right, so in principles of accounting, you learn some different terms. So these are terms that I would like you to learn. They could pop up on the exam. So we have the measurement principle, also called the cost principle. Just basically means that the accounting information is based on the actual cost. So when I buy something, it's going to get recorded at that price, and then I depreciate it over time. But if you remember correctly, when we put the asset on the books, it stays at that number. It doesn't depreciate that number. It depreciates in a separate account. And we have revenue recognition principle, which just means that we want to recognize the revenue when it actually happens. So if I sell things in advance, I want to make sure I put something on the books to record the transaction, but I don't want to record it as revenue because it hasn't happened yet. You still owe somebody something. So I'm not going to record the revenue as revenue until it actually happens. Expense recognition, basic, same principle. You don't want to expense it on your books unless you actually incurred the expense. So maybe I paid insurance policy, and that's something that's going to benefit me over the next year or two. So I don't want to expense the whole thing in the year that I bought it. I want to amortize it over the period of the policy. So we're just recognizing that we're going to record the expense when it actually happens to match those revenues. So when the revenue happens, the expense should be happening. That's kind of how we even it out over a period of time. You don't want a huge expense for insurance and then have nothing, with the last quarter or something. Like, you want to even it out. And then we have the full disclosure principle, which requires a company to report the details behind financial statements that would impact the user. So sometimes you don't always get the whole picture from just looking at numbers. Sometimes you need an explanation. And that's what the disclosure or footnotes will do after you read a financial statement. You're looking at numbers. you might wonder why. Well, why did they, lose so much money in this area? Why did they make, why was the Entergy cost so much lower this year than last year? Maybe they had some huge carbon credits that they submitted and they got a credit, and so the expense is low for 1 year. Well, that's the kind of stuff you would note, things like that. All right, then we have some assumptions. We have going concern assumption, which just means that the accounting information reflects a presumption that the business will continue to operate. Monetary, which means we're expressing our transactions in the form of money. We have time period assumption, which means that it presumes that the life of the company can be divided into time periods, such as months and years. Most of the time, the time period for an organization is 12 months. A lot of times it's on a calendar year. Sometimes there's businesses that decide to do a physical year, which is 12 months, but not January to December. Maybe it runs from June to May. Then we have business entity assumption, which means that the business is accounted for separately from the owner and other business entities. All right, so we have different types of businesses. There's sole proprietorship. So let's say I want to start my own business and I want to make jewelry and sell jewelry. Well, I can do that, and I would be a sole proprietor, which means I'm just one person that owns this. And for tax purposes, it's just going to flow through to my tax return under my social security number. I don't have to get anything fancy or register my name or do anything like that. I can just be a sole proprietor. Then we have partnerships, where it's 2 or more people, and they are called partners. And the only requirement in the agreement for the partners is to have an agreement where the partners run the business together. And then we have the corporation. So the corporation is a business legally separate from its owners. And so the corporation becomes its own entity. And the owners, the shareholders, they're not personally liable for any of the corporation's taxes and stuff like that. So everything's separate. So you have your own separate entity that pays its own taxes. That's a corporation. All right, then there's a couple little mixes in between there. So our basic equation is assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity. I'm sure you remember that. So our assets are things that, we're going to be able to use in the future. They're going to benefit us. And then we have liabilities. Liabilities means that you are liable to pay something or to provide a service. So anytime there's a liability, you owe something. And then you have your owner's equity. All right, so we have our assets, and those are examples would be like cash, accounts receivable. Accounts receivable is something that's on the books that maybe you sold a service or a product to someone. It becomes an accounts receivable, meaning you're going to receive money in the future from this person because you sold them something, either a product or service. Then we have vehicles, notes receivables. It's kind of the same thing, but it's something that you've issued to someone and they pay you the same amount every month. And then we have land, buildings, supplies, equipment. So larger items, larger supplies and equipment will be considered an asset. So those are owned or controlled by the company, and those are things that are going to benefit the company in the future. The liabilities are the creditor's claims on the asset. So an example will be accounts payable. So remember, accounts receivable was we're going to receive money from someone in the future. And accounts payable means we're going to pay somebody something in the future. So I maybe need some material for a job, and I have an account with Home Depot. So I go to Home Depot and I buy some equipment and I use that on my job. Well, I didn't have to pay for it that day. It's just on credit. And I have to set it up on my books through my transaction as an accounts payable, meaning I have to pay the Home Depot people later down the road. All right, notes payable is something that you would set up and pay the same amount over a period of time. Think of like a car note. You'll have the principal and the interest that you have to pay, and it's the same payment over a period of time. It's set. So that would be your notes payable. Taxes payable. Well, sometimes we collect sales tax from people and we got to turn around and pay that. If we're paying payroll and we, have paychecks, we have withholdings of taxes. And so we put that into a liability account because we have to push that to the government or the state. Okay, then we have owner's equity, which is the owner's claims on the assets. So that's whatever they contribute in capital. Maybe it's money, A lot of times they contribute cash when the company's not doing so well. Sometimes partners come in, or, owners come in, shareholders come in, and they contribute something else. It's something that the company. We have retained earnings, and then we have dividends, because corporations are going to be paying dividends on their profits. Hang on one second. Okay, I'm back muted. All right, so just let's look at this transaction here. So we have Scott invested $20,000 cash to start the business in return for stock. So we have an asset that came in the books for cash, and then we have equity, common stock for $20. I mean, $20,000, not $20, sorry. Okay. So we balance $20,000 on each side of the equation, because remember, it's assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. So this is an asset, this is owner's equity. So we have 20,000 and 20,000. So we always want to make sure we're in balance. All right, this one says we purchased supplies paying $1,000 cash. So we have our cash on the book still from the last transaction. So our second transaction is we're purchasing supplies and we're paying cash. So now part of the cash that we have is going to go out. So it's on here as a credit. And then we have supplies, which is also an asset, but it goes on as a debit. So on the same side of the equation, they're both assets. We have a debit and a credit for the same amount. So we're still in balance. We still have 20,000 on each side of our equation. We purchased equipment for $15,000 cash. So on number 3, cash is going out, $15,000, but I bought equipment. So now my equipment goes in the books as a debit. So again, it's a wash. And so I still have my equation in balance. We purchased purchase supplies of $200 and equipment of $1,000 on account. That means that we're not paying cash for it right now. I'm buying it, I'm charging it, or I'm gonna put it on my account someplace, and I'm paying for it later. When we pay for something later, that's an accounts payable. So number 4, we get supplies. So that's an asset, $200 goes on the books as a debit. We have equipment for $1,000. It's an asset, so it goes on the books for debit for $1,000. And then we have to pay that back out later. So accounts payable, it goes on the books as an accounts payable, which is going to be on the books as a credit. So when we look at the total of our equation again, assets equal liability plus owner's equity, we're still in balance because we have liabilities of $1,200 plus this $20,000 of equity. So we have 21.2 on this side and 21.2 in assets on the other side. So we're still in balance. So the whole goal is to remember that we do in the double entry. And so hopefully you remember that it's every time you have a transaction, you're going to have at least 2 parts to that entry, a debit and a credit, but your debit and credit have to balance to 0. They have to equal. All right, so on number 5, we borrowed $4,000 from the American Bank. So we have $4,000 in cash that we received, so we put it onto our asset side. And then we have a notes payable. So now we're going to have to pay that money back over a period of time, probably with interest. It's going to be the same note every month. That's my notes payable, $4,000. We're still in balance, 25.2 on each side. All right, so now we're going to provide consulting services, receiving $3,000 cash. I'm receiving the cash. So now I have an asset of $3,000 as a debit on the books, and I have $3,000 in revenue on the books. Okay, revenue is anytime I sell something. I have services that I sold, or I have product that I sold. So when we add up all of our assets and all of our liabilities, we are in balance at 28.2. So now I paid salaries of $800 to employees. So my cash is going out. My expense is there. So now I have, instead of a revenue, I have an actual expense because I'm paying a salary. So we should be still in balance. And now we have 27.4 on each side. And it tells us that the expense decreases the equity. So on the books, when you post an expense, it posts as a debit. I'm showing it here as a credit so you can realize that this is something that gets deducted from that total. All right. Dividends of $500 are paid to shareholders. So here's cash going out, and now we're paying out a dividend. So we're still in balance. They also decrease equity. So expense and dividends both, they decrease your equity. All right. So the other thing what you should have learned about in that first principles class is financial statements. So this is what we use internally and externally to see a snapshot of what is the business doing. How much do we make in revenue? What were our expenses? What assets do we have on the books? We can do lots of different formulations and calculations to figure out if this is a company that we want to invest in, or if this is a company that we want to buy, or maybe it's to see how can we improve moving forward. These financial statements will have all of that information that will allow you to pull those different formulas from and make those decisions. So the income statement is what it says. It's your income. So on that income statement, you'll see all your income and all your expenses, and then it's going to show you what your operating income is. And then we have the statement of retained earnings. So we can calculate what that ending retained earnings is for the year. So it explains the changes from the net income or loss and from any dividends over a period of time. And then we have the balance sheet. So the balance sheet is where we have that equation, assets equal liabilities plus owner's equity. The way that it's organized is just that way. All the assets are usually together. They're going to come up with a total. All your liabilities are going to be listed together. You're going to have a total. Then you'll have your owner's equity listed together with a total. So when you look at it on the report, sometimes you'll see the assets are at the top and then the liabilities and equity go underneath. And then those two numbers should match. Sometimes they're side by side. Depends on how you formulate your reports in the system. So this shows all of those assets in detail. It lists out what is cash, what is a notes receivable, what is your liabilities, your accounts payable, how much is on the books for your notes payable. So so that's just kind of a snapshot of where you are at that time. And then we have the statement of cash flows. This shows you where the cash is coming from, what kind of transactions. So maybe it looks like we have a bunch of cash, but we didn't get a bunch of cash because we made money on our products and profits. Maybe we sold an asset and we've got a lot of cash that way. So maybe it was something that we paid for in advance long time ago, and it was an investment and we sold it, made some money on it to bring money into the company. The statement of cash flows will show that. Where is that money coming from? So here's some little examples. So we have an income statement. It's very, very simple. Here's your revenue, expense, and then your net income. So we have revenue, which is sales, minus any expenses, and that gives us our net income. And we have a statement of retained earnings. So we're just showing how do we calculate that. We add in our income for the year. So we take the beginning balance plus the income, less the dividends, come up with our ending retained earnings. Here's a balance sheet. So I have my assets over here, liabilities and owner's equity on the right side. So I'm adding up all my assets to get 26.9, add up my liabilities and equity and get my total, and it's the same as my assets. And here's my statement of cash flows. So you'll notice it's broken out into 3 sections. We have activities that come from operating, which is just your regular business transactions happening throughout the year. Then we have our cash flow from investing. So like I said, sometimes we invest in different things, land, whatever, equipment, and maybe we sold it or maybe we purchased something. So that would all get listed in this section. And then we have cash flows from financing. So maybe we have money that we borrowed from the bank, and that's how we've gotten the cash. Or maybe there's investments by the shareholders and we took in cash that way. Maybe we paid the dividends out, which hopefully you did, because then that means you're making money. So we have those going out. So that's all about financing. All right, so those are the 4 statements. It's a real simple example of them. I mean, it's not real, fancy or giving you a whole lot, but it just gives you an example of how it would possibly be laid out, what's on each one of those statements. So I just want you to be familiar back with that. So when we go into all of our calculations and we start talking about different things, we won't be always bringing things to financial statements. You'll have some homework having to do that. So I just kind of want to refresh what all this was and try to get your, brain thinking about debits and credits again and how to do journal entries and things like that. So you'll have some of that in the homework. But really, chapter 1 was just kind of an overview of some of the concepts and also just a snapshot of what those financial statements look like. So that's all I really wanted to cover tonight. Next week, we'll go over chapter 2 and 3. There are some of the homeworks already posted that you can be doing for this week and next week. And some of the questions will come off, those 3 chapters. So it'll give you some examples of adjustments, which we'll do those next week. So the main goal today was to go over making sure everybody knew how to get to the information, what resources you had, how are you going to be doing your homework, what's expected, and then just kind of an overview of the financial accounting. So do y'all have any questions?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment, okay.
No, ma'am, I don't have any questions.
Okay, so I'm available. Like I said, I work full time, so don't always check the emails during the day, but you can text me because I always have my phone on my desk, and periodically I'll check that during the day. So if you want me to get something quickly, the best thing to do is to text. You can always send me information through the email if it's easier to do it that way, and then just send me a text and say, hey, I sent an email. Can you read it and get back with me? So that way I know that I have something sitting in there. So I'll check it periodically, but if it's a really hectic, busy day, I might not log in and check the emails during the day. So like I said, send me that text. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I think that's it. I mean, if you have any problems, my number's on the syllabus, you know how to get to me. If you have any questions about Canvas, you can, let me know. I'll try to help if I can. I'm still trying to learn it myself. So, we'll see how it goes. We'll adjust if we need to as we're going through the semester.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good night.
Thanks. Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.